Environmental problems have no boundaries. We talked about the component called atmosphere. There are no boundaries in the air, in the atmosphere. So one problem that emanates from an environment, give it some time. So it's a very serious and is growing international problem. And the
issue of environment is not a one-man show. It's responsibility of all.
It's not every day you come to a program and people are putting environment on the front burner for conversation because people think there are more pressing issues to discuss. But when we destroy this environment, who is going to, what's the future generation going to have? My final summation is that when you go to Lake Chad Basin now, even that water that used to be very popular where the fish is happening is no longer there.
UNEP and Interpol considers environmental crimes as the fourth largest criminal activity in the world. There's so much leakages, oil theft and the rest. And you know, our oil is a mainstay of our economy. 95% leaking away. We're only benefiting 5%. How can we grow?
And Nigeria is the most populous nation, then you should know that you have young people that need to connect with whatever is the type of environmental crimes we're seeing.
For environmental crimes, the fact that the NFIU is, we have created a specific unit called the environment to look into the aspects of environmental crime from the financial perspective.
If you monetize these kinds of criminal activities, what we are losing from environmental crimes is worth $250 US, not naira. And it's increasing by 5 to 7% every year to show you how severe a problem it is.
When you're committing an environmental crime, you'll find that just about every other crime that is an organized crime can be committed within that line.
Illegal wildlife and animal poaching, illegal production and trade of ozone layer depletion substances, pollution of the atmosphere, oceans, rivers, or the earth. These are all environmental criminal activities that go on, and they also go on in our own context.
And you also have to understand that people in this country, we have a high level of poverty. When you're talking about illegal wildlife trade, you find people selling bushmeat. This is very common if you go to the roads and some rural areas. People don't even know that they are selling something that is exotic.
Wildlife crimes is another classification. There are crimes that involve the illegal trade, poaching, or killing of wildlife.
If any of us here is familiar with Arise Television, you will always see that there's no time Arise will cast a news, and intermittently you will not see adverts on wildlife. So this is born to the partnership between the agency, Ministry of Environment, NESRIA, and the Wild Aid.
Thankfully for science and every other thing, not because of God's mercy, if we finish eating all of this chicken and fish, where will we get for the future? Because every day you go out for every event, people will slaughter chicken, people will buy fish. And then we need to start recreating them in our own way. So my submission, Mr. Chairman, sir, is that agencies that have responsibility must do their work.
Nigeria is a transit point. We have a lot of imports coming in through the ports. These imports normally sort of hidden where you have illicit, exotic wildlife and the rest of them. They move through Nigeria's borders and they move to other destinations. So the customs has been very helpful in this regard. We've been able to share intelligence. We've been able to secure some kind of convictions in that regard as well.
Media organization must create massive awareness. We should create clubs in our schools where people value what environment is all about. And we should stop building on waterways, because part of the floods we are having is because we're contesting with environment and we're putting pressure on nature.
Environmental crimes involve violation of laws that protect the environment and wildlife within it.
So for me, I think the basic thing first is to create massive awareness. People need to know. Agencies that have responsibility need to show themselves and come out clearly and keep creating awareness.
Environmental crimes. These are crimes that involve the release of harmful substances into the environment, to the atmosphere, such as the air. It can also be in the water or soil pollution. Examples include oil spills. My brother Ugoji really exposed so many things about oil criminality.
And in the area of sensitization or awareness creation we talk about, currently in Nigeria, nationwide or nationally, we have a national stakeholder forum on issue of to combat wildlife and forest crime in Nigeria. And all the relevant agencies are part of this stakeholder forum, including the National Orientation Agency.
And if we must develop, and the development has to happen within the environment, we must be concerned about combating environmental crimes. Environmental crimes affect the poor and vulnerable the most. Why? Because the poor and vulnerable depend so much on environmental resource base to eke out their living. And so when such environments are degraded or invaded by criminals, definitely this set of human beings will suffer the most.
These environmental crimes are a threat to national security. So again, you have to go back to that fundamental recommendation number 1 of the FATF. You have to identify your risk. What is your risk? Your risk is you look at the threats plus your vulnerabilities. This will give you your risk.
Environmental crimes. These are illegal activities that harm the environment and the inhabitants. One thing is to plant a tree, but the other is to nurture it to grow. And what kind of tree are you planting? Are you planting the tree that human beings will be interested in nurturing to grow? Or are you planting the trees that you come tomorrow to lumber and steal away?
Do we understand enough about the risks of this particular crime in this country? We have to do an assessment of that. It is from there we'll be able to know which areas are vulnerable and how to mitigate those particular vulnerabilities.
And illegal mining. We came from Zaria, and Zaria is very close to Zamfara State, where enormous illegal mining activities are going on, meaning that enormous environmental criminality go on in those spaces. Wildlife crimes is another classification. There are crimes that involve the illegal trade, poaching, or killing of wildlife. At the local level, they will say hunters. At other times, they will say they are games. But those ones are not the real ones that hurt the environment so much.
The Attorney General's office last year called National Strategy to Combat Wildlife and Forest Crime in Nigeria, sponsored by UNODC from the beginning to the end. And so all these agencies, so in the implementation of that strategy is the National Orientation Agency that is taking lead in that regard.
There are crimes that involve the illegal logging and destruction of forests, and examples include deforestation. Honestly, this is one factor that gives rise to climate change. Honestly, and it happens from the local level to national level to international levels.
As of today, we can count on 34 regulations that were gazetted on environmental issues, both in brown environment and green environment. When I mean brown environment, I mean industrial areas of the part of the environment. Then green environment has to do with the aquatic, the terrestrial, and the herbarium.
Environmental crime undermines the rule of law and governance. It involves corruption, counterfeiting, cybercrime and other forms of organized crime that we have been drumming ourselves with since yesterday. It weakens the state's ability to provide security and justice for its citizens and erodes public trust and confidence.
What do we do about it? If you ask my opinion, I would say the National Security Advisor is a very good structure to have a fusion center. Intelligence. While I was an investigator, some of the best cases I've had success with, both in terms of investigation all the way to prosecution, are cases that have had very good collaboration with every other law enforcement, including civilians. You can't underestimate the amount of information that you get from civilians. We ignore that sometimes, and I think that's one of our undoings.
You do make a point. I think that we need to not lie to ourselves. We know our problems. We know the solutions. We just need to be frank about the fact that the bold steps needed to combat all kinds of organized crime need to be done. Somebody used the term transparently and honestly. There's no transparency, there's no honesty. All our good intentions will come to naught. Somebody said the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Thank you very much. And to you, wonderful audience, you are the best. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you.